Hello and welcome to this episode of Angel's Top Telemarketing Trends podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Dave, who, to give him the glamorous title, is a specialist in telemarketing, agency management, and face-to-face fundraising. But we're actually going to start this episode with the not so glamorous way that our partnership with Dave and his team actually initially started, because it's quite a funny anecdote that I guess where we first started, Dave, was eventually we managed to achieve a lot of great success with a highly optimized telemarketing strategy, but it all started on
a dark December night, wasn't it?
December night, yeah.
We had an appeal going out and we didn't have anyone to pick up the phone. And we needed someone to step in, at very much the last minute to make sure we could answer those calls to our supporters. Yeah.
Yeah, I still remember it now. I think I was on my mind was on a flight to Denmark to enjoy for Christmas, and I still remember the phone call, and it was very much we need some help handling some field line calls. Can you help us quickly? I guess what transpired was that we got things set up quickly on both sides, and managed to navigate the appeals activity, and then that sort of led on, I guess, to the start of what became a great partnership.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember those early days coming into the team and then realizing, we had pages and pages of, safeguarding checks and everything, to get through the partnership, to set everything up. And, the DM landed and you guys were there to take the calls. And there was a huge sigh of relief across the team, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And a sigh of relief on our side as well when it was all working as expected. So
it was very good.
Yeah, no, it's just a funny way that it started. But I think what we always hoped was that kind of the combination of our experience and our backgrounds would lead us, to kind of arriving on a highly optimized telemarketing plan. So yeah, I guess for the audience, I guess it's be useful, I guess, to share that journey of how something can start effectively on the fly, and then how you can sort of take that on, I guess, to test telemarketing and then ultimately get to a place where you've got a really strong program. So I guess it would be just good to, for context, just to share a bit of your background and experience in that space.
Yeah, thank you. Gosh, I think I started fundraising way back when 2007, 2008. I decided to go in at the deep end. I did door-to-door fundraising in the Northeast. It started in the summer and it was great. Everyone was in short t-shirts and tabards, and then the winter hit and I had a choice to make, and the choice was I'm going to stick at this and really give it my all. And I completed a management program and ran my own marketing company for a few years before working for a supplier in field development. And then I switched to the charity side and had the opportunity to work with an in-house team. And of course, lockdown happened, and a lot of us switched across to telemarketing and that world. I'd never thought that years of call center experience from what's now 20 years ago would ever resurface and be useful. But it absolutely has been over the last few years. We've broken some records. We've created some real success for the charities that we've worked with, and yeah, it's great to be here. And yourself as well, like learning about Angel and your background. I think we just hit off a really great partnership, and we could tap into each other's experience and grow something really special. So it was good.
Yeah, definitely. I think our journey started in a similar way. I started at Angel as a kind of a bright-faced 16-year-old taking calls for the Salvation Army, and like you, I sort of had a decision to make as to whether I wanted to sort of pursue it as a career, and I fell in love with it really, and enjoyed working with our clients. Like you said, we struck up a great partnership when we came to work together, and I think the power of the channel and its capability is what
Mm.
I think for both of us really is what led us to think actually we're onto something here. Where where
Mm.
can we take this, and what are the opportunities?
Mm.
So I guess it'd be interesting to hear from your perspective what you think the power of strong telemarketing strategy is and the channel's capabilities, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's how you start to develop a really strong strategy in the channel, is through understanding its power and its capabilities. The fact that we're running teams of people who are the front line
Mm,
of the organization. They're the ambassadors. They're the face of everything that we're doing to the public, over calls,
mhm.
directly into people's homes. And so, I've always thought that when you're bringing people on through telemarketing or face to face, they've joined the organization through a conversation.
Yes.
And, understanding that conversation continuing, is really key for engagement and the buzzword around charities at the moment, lifetime value, and maximizing that. But just as much for the supporters as well, that they feel connected, to what they're giving to, and
Mm.
they're inspired in the right way at the time and in the channel that most appeals to them. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably the only channel, obviously, as I guess as well as face to face, where you can have a conversation with someone and really understand what motivates them. Really, kind of, in the space of only 5 or 6 minutes, you can really get across um, the nuances of your work, have that rapport moment with them to, like I say, understand what their motivations are, how you can then, take those motivations and apply it to the work that the charity's doing and connect those dots so that that individual realizes, oh yeah, actually,
Mm.
I align with what you do, and the power of that conversation will be, in some cases, a relatively short one, as you said, and
Hmm.
kind of the lifetime of that donor's journey,
Mm.
hopefully with the charity, is something that will stick with them, and it also means you can have different conversations from with one individual to another. Whereas some channels, I think, you can be a bit restricted, where
Mm.
just by virtue of the channel, if it's mail or something like that, it can be a little bit harder to be so nuanced to each, on an individual level. And as you say, that definitely feels like, in our
Mm.
experience, where the sector's going, it's, how do we have one-to-one,
Human connection.
insights and human interaction with our supporters? So I think,
Mm.
yeah, that is kind of I guess, was the star that we were always striving
Yeah, the North
for.
Star. Let's bring in some corporate business speak. That was that's
Exactly.
what we were.
We sort of set that as yeah, I guess as where we wanted to get to, but we knew there was, a lot of steps that needed to happen,
Mm.
that we needed to take to get there. I guess the question maybe that someone might ask that, was in our shoes back then is, how do I launch a telemarketing campaign? And also, how do I
Mm.
do that if the members of my team or my organization on a wider level don't really understand the
Mm.
capability of the channel or the power of a conversation, because they're maybe more comfortable with other channels, or they just don't have that experience? And I guess what was unique about our journey was we were able to take, and especially with your support, because obviously they were largely, it was, the teams that you were managing on the charity side. How do you take them on that journey with you so that you make those, make those
Yeah,
steps together? So I guess, yeah, it would be useful, I guess, to kind of
yeah.
reminisce back as to, how we started that
Talk
journey.
through that. I think, yeah, and thanks. Yeah, I think that's a really good, yeah, direction for the conversation. I think one of the key things to understand is that people are, human nature is that we naturally tap back into our experience. So when that experience has been, I don't take calls, or I never answer those calls, then that can colour decisions at sometimes the senior level.
Mhm.
And it's understanding that we're all different, and depending on our frame of mind, which changes constantly, we're open to discussions, at the right time, at the, with the right people. And so I think that was always part of it, is that how can we prove that everyone knows you could run, one shot campaigns, you could run short term, big reactivation campaign and then not do anything else for a long time. So how can we start, doing something regularly where we can continually show the impact of of telemarketing, and I think it blossomed from welcome calling. Making sure that we could improve retention rates and welcome people in the right way and gain insights. And then win back calling as well was something regular that we could do to show that we can win supporters back, often who've left us accidentally because they changed bank accounts and just didn't think to transfer over their donation. And yeah, I think having that understanding that when you're working with people and fundraisers, you want to keep them engaged in your work to be able to get the best out of them. Um, and so when you can build up a core of experience within, an external team, then you can really start to do something special. And that's where we started, wasn't it? And we
Yeah,
went on from
exactly.
there.
And I think as you said, it was a lot of the detail that sat within the campaign, and really utilizing the channel to get the insights as well as with the welcome calls, it was getting insights as to what their previous journey looked like. It was feeding those back through almost like a fundraiser report, wasn't it? Back to the fundraisers that were on the
Mm,
ground, whether that be face to face or other channels, so that they could understand where potential problems might be or what was working well. So it wasn't just a welcome call, a tick box exercise to say that yes, we've carried out a welcome call. It was an engaging conversation to make that person feel like they'd been onboarded correctly, but also at the
mm,
same time having those quality checks in the background to make sure that so that's sort of continuous improvement, isn't it? If we feed back to the front end, how a supporter's presented to us, sort of back end of their onboarding journey, then it will just continue to improve processes.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think in that you're closing the loop, aren't you? In that feedback cycle between supporter, charity, and fundraiser. And I'm a huge advocate of feeding back the positive, outcomes. Often, the positive feedback is a one-liner, but every so often you get real detailed feedback that goes right through, to our CEO's office, because they've had such a brilliant experience. They want to share that back, and so it's really important that your fundraisers get to hear, those kind of comments and that kind of feedback, because it's a very challenging, role. It's challenging to be out there, whether you're at a private site or on someone's doorstep and the rain's coming in sideways, or you're making a call and it's your last call of the evening, 7:30 at night, and you haven't had any successes in the last hour, and you just want to get that next one in. It's important that you're able to, know that the power of your fundraising is really changing people's lives. It makes people feel fantastic when you catch people at the right moment and they're in the right position to help, which we do, day in, day out. So not only are you, having a huge effect on the beneficiaries and all the children, or people that we're trying to help, it's important that we recognize that the fundraisers are a key part of that, and we want to keep them updated on what's happening.
yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key themes in that is momentum, and how you use that to, both in terms of the partnership you have between the agency and the charity, but also with the fundraisers, how you create momentum. And I think the way that we did that successfully was proving the concept. And initially we kind of had that panic moment. How do we get this set up off the ground? And that was sort of the starting point. And then, as you said, we moved into the likes of welcome calls, thank you calls, etc., where we started relatively small. They're relatively safe calls as well, if you like, from a brand perspective.
Yeah.
We got the confidence both with your internal stakeholders, with our team, and then with that momentum, we then use that as a springboard to, like I said, continue taking those stakeholders and marketing execs, etc., on that journey with us, because they could start to see actually we're onto something here, that there is benefit in doing this. And I guess in that space, I recall the kind of the workshops and the forums that were
Mm.
put in place to build on that momentum and really take those people, like I say, on that kind of journey
Yeah.
with us. It'd be good to unpick and kind of look back on that in terms of how we managed to utilize those opportunities.
Yeah, I think that feeds into like how to build, great partnership. And almost one of the methods I think we used was treating your team like an extension of our internal team. So rather than you're an external agency and we need to do X, Y, and Z and then wait for results, thinking about you as as an external part of our in-house team, meant that we spent more time with your fundraisers, letting them know about our brand and why people would want to say yes, through through all the reasons why people say no, and really inspire them. I think one of the things that happened was there was an innovation budget that was available, and we realized as a charity we hadn't called a lot of people for a very, very long time. And, I think we identified something like 50 odd, 60 odd thousand people. We'd never called them to say thank you. And of course, what a great premise to start with. The idea was that we could call all of these people, whether lapsed supporters, on different products, single givers, non-financial, supporters. And we started with that concept of having a thank you call. And that could branch out and be supporter led, with different types of asks. And so for people on different products, we maybe wanted to offer them a different product. People that we offered an upgrade to their current regular gift, and we had the option to do another single gift. But the thank you was tailored. So in the data, when we did the segmentation, we were able to identify what the different groups were and what they'd done for us in the past. And we'd had to do a lot of training with your team because you didn't have access to our CRM to see the click of a button. So we had, I think, the biggest calling file a data team's ever built with, was it 126, columns of data in the end? To make sure your team had everything they needed to thank the support properly. And then using a dynamic script, we were able to, be supporter led. What we were conscious of, it was lockdown, or we'd just come out of lockdown, and we were conscious of not asking people for money who didn't want to be asked. And that was one of the big risks that were flagged, for example. And we introduced a very soft, permission question. So after we're thanking all of these different people that have supported us, we were saying, some words to the sense that, we're talking to people about an additional way to help us. Something extra that they could do to support us. Can we talk to you about that? And so everyone who felt that they were either doing enough or it wasn't the right time for them to come back on, or whatever their situation was, we didn't need to get into conversations with them. We could just thank them and let them go with a great impression. And that opened up that conversation for additional or different products, cross-selling. It opened up conversations for upgrading what you were already doing, or coming back on board because you'd left us recently, or starting something new because you've been doing something, non-financial. You've been following, getting our mailing or updates, on a regular basis, but had never taken that step to donate to us, or even just leaving, a one-off donation because you've had such a great time. But we were able to tailor the script and the conversation to how the support was leading us, which was incredible. And it didn't start well, if you remember. It did not start well. We were not, we started small, as you do with any large campaign, but the fundraisers were getting negatives. They were getting, reasons, very valid reasons why people couldn't help, and that started to seep into the expectations on the calls. And so we ran a series, I think once a week for a few weeks, sessions of half an hour or 45 minutes where we could connect your team with our team on the in-house, to speak to our fundraisers, to speak to myself, to speak to other marketers who were delivering different campaigns, and really connect your fundraisers to what we were doing. And then we went back out with a stage two, And we started seeing some real success. And it just went from strength to strength, over the course of that campaign. And we were seeing results like we'd never seen before. And I think that opened up a lot of eyes about what, is the power of telemarketing and reaching out to people in the right way. And then that led, the department I was working in at the time to think, right, this has been, a huge success. We'd like to replicate this and do more of it in the future.
Mhm.
So we had the opportunity to run a telemarketing forum, to upskill marketers from, lots of different teams who, had no telemarketing experience. Some teams who, often you've got a legacy team that, do engage in telemarketing, but not necessarily at scale. And we invited you to that forum, to answer hard questions. I don't think they were too bad. I think it was quite a positive experience overall. But I think one of the things that captured people's imaginations was the infinity loop.
Yeah, I think so. I think yeah, it was more curiosity, I think, and it was actually quite. There was a bit of a buzz in the room because some people, genuinely hadn't had much experience in telemarketing, and they were just curious and interested to know. It was almost like you open a new avenue for them to utilize for their marketing initiatives. And I think that um, one of the key concepts that we found was that infinity loop model. Um, and we, I guess, developed the concept on the basis of imagining the donor journey as not being so linear and having a start line and a finish line that you just draw in a straight line, and you almost have supporters in a box. If they come in through this channel, this is the journey that they go on. We send them a few emails, a couple of things in the post, and we might call them, but they'll be upgraded once or twice, and it's a very kind of rigid approach. We I guess through both a combination of our experience and working with partners like yourself, it quickly became apparent, especially on the back of that cross-sell campaign, which was one of the most dynamic campaigns that we ran, that the supporter journey just isn't that linear. It's unfortunately just not that simple that someone will start somewhere and end somewhere.
Mm,
Each individual that you speak to will have slightly different needs that you need to accommodate, and also that during their journey of being with you, there'll be different things that will be appropriate to ask them for. And the power of a conversation opens that opportunity up so well. So on the cross-sell campaign, you're able to and because we had the ability to see what they'd done before,
mm,
we were going into it well prepared, what our team were, and we also had the opportunity to have a conversation, ask them about how they might like to support and build that rapport with them. We could join those dots really easily, and what became clear was that based on the supporter groups and just how they responded, some people might have been even primed for a legacy ask at that point because they were just super engaged. They'd already supported the charity in the most kind of valuable way that was possible through kind of regular giving, but actually they wanted to do more. So in those cases, it would have been appropriate to ask for a legacy. Whereas in other cases, maybe they were colder prospects to the organisation. They weren't that engaged. It might have been appropriate to maybe make a small donation ask, or even just get them back on board in some way of showing their support and warming the conversation up. And that's a really wide spectrum there. So I think that infinity loop model, which we'll share separately to inform the conversation, is very much designed to see that I guess it's in the name. It's an infinity loop. So the idea is that you create value from each individual supporter, and by imagining that they're on an infinity loop of 8 in terms of their relationship with you. So that they'll be unaware, how do you make them then aware of what you do? How do you welcome them? How do you upgrade and retain them, and then take them on a journey where they hopefully at some point will become a legacy supporter or an advocate for you? But they might jump around that loop because that's what's right for them, and that's okay because you can understand their needs really well through the power of a conversation and being open-minded when you go into a campaign. But that having that approach actually on a campaign
mm,
takes a huge amount of taking people with you and breaking barriers down, I suppose, between departments. And it's a case of okay, the legacy budget might be X, and your target is purely to get legacies, but other
Yeah,
people might have different targets. And but how do you break down those walls
yeah.
to connect the teams together?
I remember those conversations because those audiences are owned by different people. Your single giver audience is normally owned by, one group. Your regular giving audience is owned by somebody else. Your non-financial audience, your even to the extent the lapsed audience is owned by somebody. You've generally got people looking after them. So we had to have those conversations about trust me with your audience. But one of the reasons we were able to have those conversations in a positive way is because at the end of the day we've got targets to hit. We're working for charity, but we want to do the best for our supporters, but we also have goals to hit for our beneficiaries. And so if there's a channel that you're not tapping into that can get you to your target faster, more successfully, and we were able to demonstrate that from our, test campaigns that we've been running, and the feedback that was coming through. Then why wouldn't you want to tap into that? So, and yeah, we got a lot of permissions through. So, and a lot of interest. I can't remember how many people the report went to, and it was a huge effort from a lot of people, and a lot of unsung heroes. Just from data teams pulling together, calling files that they'd never, conceived of before, through to senior management greenlighting, the work. And so, yeah, I think the TM forum really helped to open people's eyes to, what's possible with the channel. And also allow them to ask questions. And we did get some of those questions, like, I don't like being called. Why do you think this is going to work? People don't like picking up the phone. And it's the same questions I've been dealing with my entire career, is that people don't open the door. Like, I would never sign up to something on my doorstep, or I don't stop for those people on, the event stands. And you might not, and that's absolutely valid, and we would probably thank you and not even try to converse.
Mhm.
But there are thousands or tens of thousands of people who, it is the right channel for them, and they are happy to speak, and they are happy to, to give something. I often think or use the, example of uh, charity is a good idea. Helping children, helping animals, helping the environment is a really good idea. And we don't often have the time to volunteer and give, the time to help these causes. Otherwise, I'm sure many more of us would.
Mhm.
So giving a little bit of money towards something that's making a difference is, feels fantastic. But people don't sit there on a Tuesday afternoon, or a Saturday morning and think, hey kids, this is a great day to like do a direct debit to a charity.
Mhm.
Or start something regular or whatever. And so they could have received the best marketing material from us possible, but that call to action that we were able to provide to say, hey, we're a great organization. Let me let you know some of the things we're doing to inspire you, and see if you could help with something small, regular,
Mhm.
to make a real difference. But yeah, that forum really helped to, open a lot of eyes, and we had an ideation session, and there were some great ideas coming out from people who just had, these ideas about calls they'd like to make and never had the opportunity, and so, it really sparked a lot of collaboration. One of the things in charities we're always looking to do is break down silos. If you've
Mhm.
ever worked in the charity marketing department, it can get very siloed. I'm looking after this and I've got to deliver this. And so, when you have an opportunity to bring people together and explore something new and fresh, or to restart something that had been tried in the past but hadn't quite worked because maybe the
Mhm.
understanding wasn't there and the agency management skills weren't necessarily, understood well enough to get the most out of a partnership in the past. Um,
Yes.
So that's where connecting with great teams like what you run, and there are other organizations out there. Uh, we're not comparing, although we all do. But having you in the room, as working with, I think we've both worked with lots of charities. I think I've worked with about, I don't know, 35, 40 charities over my career. I'm sure you've worked with similar or more. So yeah, it just it's about making sure that opportunity is understood.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as much as we kind of went on that journey, and it leveled up, at the heart of it the whole time was strong collaboration and management. Partnerships do need to be managed, and agencies do need that kind of that support um, kind of it's a two-way street, isn't it? The more you put in from both sides, the more you're likely to get back out. And I think one of the
Yeah.
things from our perspective that really helped drive the campaign was that the fundraiser engagement underpinned the success of the campaign in terms of what you were willing to put in.
Yeah.
And I think, I know you shared with me yesterday, I think a good analogy of set and forget compared to,
Set and
the
forget.
approach that you
I
took.
think, yeah. I
Yeah.
think one of the days where set and forget is a good strategy with telemarketing. Because, and you're right in what you said, like fundraiser engagement is key, and it underpinned all of the success that we had. Because I think as a marketer, working in the data and getting the most out of the data, understanding it and segmenting properly and maximizing the data is definitely a talent, and much more, exists much more in charity marketing teams.
Mhm.
But when you come to a channel like TM, there's this human element that you get out what you put in. It's something to cultivate. And that's why I'm a huge fan of starting small and growing something. But it's, I use the analogy, it's like a mill wheel. Once it takes a lot of effort to get that mill wheel started, a huge amount to get it to start to grind. And then once it's going, you want to keep feeding it because it can really help you achieve more than what the basic KPIs are or the targets are. When fundraisers are inspired and connected, they can really work some magic for you, and that's why we were really keen on that cross sell to have as many people in that campaign as possible to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you can say it's a very broad thing to say, oh, we train our fundraisers, but I
Mm.
think with the approach we had together, with the devil's in the detail, how often is that happening? What's the quality of that training? How engaging is that training in terms of, do those agents feel like they've just had something read at them, or do they feel like they've had a two-way interaction with a client who really cares about the campaign that's about to launch and have been really clear about the expectations that is required of them for their campaign? And crucially, whilst we're experts, we like to believe we're experts in telemarketing. That whilst we're very good at that, and we have, as you said, got experience of working with countless charities, um, we aren't always the experts of the charity's brand, especially when a partnership is new. That's the gold dust for our team, is and it takes someone to be passionate about that and really inspire the team, because we can give them all of the skills, we can set up the best script possible, we can have the right fundraisers in the room, but if they don't feel it, if they don't have that inspiration that you were able to impart on the team through the training, then you're not going to get, you might be successful, but you're not going to be as successful as you might be if the training and that engagement is optimized. And I think that
Yeah.
was crucial. And as you said earlier in the episode, that was done on a daily, if not weekly basis when we were trying to build that momentum, because that
Yeah.
was so key. As you said, we loaded the data in a certain order. We gave them insights on the spot. So from a data perspective and getting into the detail, all of that was there. But you've got to bring that to life from a human perspective. And it's like, well, actually, we're speaking to really valued supporters. We're speaking about a cause that is so emotive. We need you to be the voice of the organization and take that on. So I think that was, that just underpinned everything. And like you said, with the mill wheel, once you get that moving at the start, then the wheel will naturally spin, and they'll be sharing that amongst each other, and you can kind of build that momentum. It has to be there. So I think that was absolutely crucial and much appreciated.
I think the proof was in the pudding as well, wasn't it? It was, I think we spoke to nearly half the audience, the 25,000 conversations that we had. And, I would struggle to count the number of negative feedback or complaints on one hand.
Wow.
Because we were approaching people in the right way, because the fundraisers were connected in the right way, and they had the ability to explain what we were doing and why we were doing it, and great ways that the support could be a part of that. Was really successful. So absolutely. I think in the training sessions as well, it's too easy to run a PowerPoint and think that the training is done. I think you can be a little bit more, dynamic in how you deliver it. Making sure that the fundraisers are asked questions, they have to speak, the cameras have to be on, or even better, get an in-person session. So that they're constantly engaged through the training and they feel a part of it. I think that's one of the ways to deliver the training. And not all of the sessions were an hour or an hour and a half long. Some of them were 20 minutes for an update or half an hour. And also again, closing that loop, like listening to the feedback, listening to the calls that they were doing, so that when we came back to provide more, it was completely relevant to what they were doing and experiencing on the calls. I think that's a really big part of successful telemarketing, is that people at the charity are really listening to those calls and taking that experience on. And I think that almost leads on to some of the future insights that we wanted to touch on, wasn't it?
Exactly. I think the power of, I guess, AI, and also how it links with the way I think generally the sector and marketing is going, which is that kind of nuanced one-to-one approach. And I guess a lot of people have got opinions and on AI and where that's moving to. And I think our position on that is very much that AI, we don't see it as a tool to replace people, because how can you replace those nuanced conversations and that ability to interact with someone on a one-to-one basis? For rudimentary tasks, AI has a place, I'm sure, but in skilled fundraising, we're not convinced that it's anywhere near sophisticated enough to do what a great fundraiser can do. So I guess we're coming at it from that perspective, but at the same time, we always try to evolve and embrace new technologies. So it's kind of getting the balance between those two things. And the way that we're doing that at the moment is utilizing a piece of AI technology that, and through some innovation on our side, actually, we're able to identify sections within a call where personal information isn't captured, and where we're talking to someone purely about their motivations and interests in a effectively an anonymous way, if you just look at that section of the call. Because we appreciate that one of the risks with AI potentially is, if you put lots of personal information through it, what are the guardrails that are in these big, AI models? That, that's still to be determined. So we've developed this tool where you can, within our script, actually mark the sections from start to finish where we know that it's unlikely that a piece of PI data, or almost impossible, is captured. And then within that section of the call, en masse, so 1,000 call recordings, 10,000 call recordings that it just would be impractical to listen to one by one, we can download those call recordings and on an individual basis trim that call recording to just the section where that insight has been given. And that insight might be, why are you supporting the charity today? What inspired you to respond to our appeal? If it's an animal charity, how many pets have you got? What type of pet might you have? All of those insights that marketers, crave, really, in terms of being able to have personalized conversations thereafter with that person. We're able to access those by downloading those call recordings, trimming them on an individual basis to the, whatever length of conversation that might have been at that part of the call, and then running them through a piece of AI software which converts those spoken conversations effectively into words. And then we can then interrogate those words to build a picture from a campaign as, why someone responded. What's their interest in the cause? Was there any sentiments even? It picks up sentiments. So was someone angry, frustrated, happy, sad? All of those things, so that people can understand, if it's a television campaign, why is someone seeing our advert and in that moment responding to it, and then how are they presenting on the call? Yeah. So those insights we're now in the process of developing the piece so that we can capture those and return them back to the charity, on a record by record basis, so they can learn those things, and then when the person contacts or they contact that individual in the future, it shows that we've listened and taken on board how they were feeling at the time, or the general sentiments towards the campaign. So we're really excited about that innovation.
Yeah, I think that's one of the powers, though, isn't it, of email and direct mail, marketing, is that you're working with much larger data sets. And also you've got the insights back from how it performed. And of course you can do that with telemarketing. You can look at the response rate and the results. But one of the things that is gold dust, as you say, is having the supporter insight and what's their experience. What do they want? I think an individual, you might be lucky if you could listen to 20, 30, 40 phone calls and, call recordings in a week to kind of gain some insight. But having an AI model that can listen to thousands and tens of thousands of calls and then pull out your key insights and what's really inspiring people to take that next leap is just, incredible. And I've also heard in the sector now about AI advances in, matching, what kind of journey the supporter's on to, what kind of, win back message we might want to have, or, that agency in Australia, who's doing some incredible work with, saving supporters, but not removing the human element, like where that's needed. They're connecting into a live person to continue the conversation, but really utilizing this new tool to understand the data on a large scale, and tailor then the responses that we give to supporters. Is a really brilliant opportunity. I can't wait to see more of that happen.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I think it's a good place to leave it, because I think it looks positively ahead in terms of the opportunities that are still out there, despite the fact that we've been on a great journey together, and you can take campaigns to a certain place, but there's always new opportunities, always new technology evolving that can take things to another level again. So I think that's a great place to wrap up. But no, Dave, thanks for joining, and to the listeners, I hope you found that episode useful.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate being here and being able to share. Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.